same people, the same things. I want to escape now to another place now, but with you 'cause I don't want to be alone. Tell me if you want to follow me now, to follow me. Take me to your arms and never leave me. Don't leave me, boy. Tell me if you want to follow me now, to follow me. Take me to your arms and never leave me. Don't leave me, boy.
Four French drivers at the French Grand Prix trying to win this on the final lap. The three wide again, Guillaume down the inside. Guillaume moves across, they're both in front of Milan and Pouget.
But before you know it, we find ourselves here in the very final race of the competition.
And then they see truck racing and they think, this is crazy, you know, these are 5-ton machines, 1,200 horsepower brake.
Oh, look at that switchback. Oh, you can look and it's ready to go out.
Ben Gregory now, I love it. 10.5 minutes gone. Senna Lanson tries to go for the race lead.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head to head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Finish. I think Dennis Melchett has done enough to win the last round of the championship and to win the title all in one fell swoop.
Great touring car championship, things are never chilled here. Honestly, the cars may be a bit dull, but wow, the racing certainly isn't.
Fastest lap of the race now, Ben Lambert. Look at Andy Fox coming through the middle. He makes a little bit of contact. Dave Waldock is around and he's off on the grass.
Rayfield tries to go right round the outside of Druids. You do not do that and get away with it very often.
Takes the win in round 12. There's contact again. Fraser Smith and Dennis Melchett are off the circuit. Well, good evening, everybody. Good evening indeed. Welcome to Chaz Draycott Media, and welcome to the Chaz Draycott Media British Boring Car Championship by Abruzzi Racewear. We're here for rounds 3 and 4 of Season 3, and isn't this a blast from the past? Silverstone's old international layout that used to be raced in the British Touring Car Championship and by many others in the late 90s and into the early 2000s as well. This version actually ran all the way up until about 2010 when the circuit was obviously revamped and changed to the current layout, the awful layout that we see now. But this includes a lot of very important corners on this circuit, and the drivers may not all have a lot of experience around this layout, so it's going to be exciting to see what we can catch from the commentary box up here tonight. And joining me in said commentary box is the wonderful Ed May. Ed, we were both just saying before how much we love this layout. This should be a real jewel on the calendar, and we get to visit it twice in one season.
Yeah, it is great. Obviously, we're coming to Silverstone off the back of a brilliant opening 2 rounds at Donington Park, and it was domination by one driver, Jake Cranston, who took pole position and won both the first and second race of the evening. But here at Silverstone, we're going to have to ask the question, who else will be able to take the spotlight here? Because there's stiff competition, as we can see the drivers getting their laps in during this practice session.
Absolutely, and there are the championship standings. Jake Cranstone on 31 points, maximum points at the top of the standings, with Stephen King in second place for Team Red Ring on 18. Then it's a tie with Henry Morse and Kyle Ridley next up. Dan Downing on 13 points. The championship is very strict in terms of its points giving, basically. There aren't really many points positions at all. There's 24 cars, and only the top 10 score points, and it's 15 for a win, all the way down to 1 point for 10th position. You get 1 point for pole position as well. And then the mediocre cup for independents on the right hand side are the independent drivers who don't belong to a team. They have a different scoring system that's just 10, 8, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And that will basically just get handed out separately over the course of the season with no implications on where they finish overall in a race. So even if you finish first, like Jake Cranstone did, and Dan Downing finished in, 15th place, he would still only get 2 points less than Jake for finishing where he would be. And in the teams championship, it's close. Team Jane Fonda on 21 points ahead of Team Red Ring and Nodaphone, and then only 3 points behind them is Bordeaux in 5th place, with Netcode sat in the middle. So plenty to look at, plenty to think about here tonight, Ed. But at the moment, while the drivers are currently out for practice, it's this man, Stephen King, who, with a damaged car, is currently the fastest. I think they're all just trying to murder each other at the moment, aren't they?
I think so, as we saw, that was John Bailiff just coming, well, across the circuit at a weird angle. Look at them all together, line of stern formation flying as they're struggling to keep it side by side. Intercop, see, you can make it too wide through there. Oh, never mind, not on the exit, as Jack Johns gets a little bit of a bump for his trouble. I think that might have been from Jake Cranston. Oh my word, what are they doing? It might be best to look away from this, Chaz, because it's going to be getting ugly very, very sharpish.
Yeah, this is the fun that these guys have been having, and luckily I think they get all of this out of the way before the actual racing begins. These are all the lads that have come over from the Racing Line Jetta Cup. They're just enjoying themselves out there. There's no malice in any of this. They've all raced together a lot before, so this is all just part of the fun of these sessions. Now, I did promise you driver suits for this round onwards, but I'm afraid all of the old files that I had for them seem to have been misplaced somewhere, so I cannot find the old driver suits anywhere. So I'm in the works of getting them redone and getting them reprocessed so we can get them on to our drivers for following rounds. Heads up, car on the right there was Luke Austin. But we will have them in future rounds. Still, we've got a glorious looking field once again, Ed, in the sunshine here at Silverstone. When we come to the same circuit later on in the season, though, it's going to be night time when we finish the championship here, which is certainly going to be a different scenario altogether. And I suppose that's what keeps it slightly exciting for these guys, knowing that they're not going to get the same race meeting twice, so to speak.
Yeah, it will obviously change throughout the course of the season. Obviously, like you say, the last race will be done. I'm not sure if there is actually any floodlights here, but it will be certainly done in the dark at Silverstone. So you see Luke Austin clipping through the bollards his way over to the line. Obviously, the drivers using this session to get acclimatised to the conditions for qualifying and the race, but also just to get some wheel-to-wheel action, as we saw the front runners doing there, with Jake Cranston very much in the mix. I mean, he certainly doesn't need any more experience with wheel-to-wheel racing and carving his way through the field, because obviously he was on, well, you put it on pole position, won the first race, and then had to come back from 10th place to get yet another race victory. And it's something that I think we haven't seen too often in the British Boring Car Championship, and to do it in his first time of asking really shows the level that Jake is at and putting down a marker for the others to go and chase early on in the season.
Yeah, it really is. It's very, very impressive from Jake Cranstone, and we look forward to him doing it again in future rounds, I'm sure. We've got the dodgy MOT cars both out there tonight, Simon Price and John Roberts, currently down there in 19th and 20th places, with Tom Minot just behind them on the standings, but on the circuit he's just in front. He certainly had a lively first race meeting, did Tom Minot. A lot of contact and incidents for him, but he certainly enjoyed himself. Also Tim Rutten, who was straight into the Discord explaining how much he enjoyed himself as well, and that he cannot wait to get back behind the wheel. He's up there in 16th place at the moment. We've got Derek Robb with us from Team Red Ring. Just trying to see if there's any drivers here tonight that we didn't have for the first race meeting, because we should have 24. We don't have John Tusting for this evening, I'm afraid. We do have Michael Blake. We will not have Maciej Sakovic here tonight, who is Michael Blake's teammate at Might Just Fit. He's actually been doing a real world track day today at my local Alton Park with a good friend of mine, Pete Harrod, and Dave Crozier, the manager of Team Mad. So it's good to see that Maciej's getting out in the proper machinery. I think they were in Dave's S2000 today, so hopefully they've had a good day of it. But we all know that we want to be in a virtual Jetta instead, don't we, Ed?
Oh, definitely. It's going to be exciting to see how Maciej gets on. I remember racing against him in the, what was it? I think it was a series that you were actually broadcasting, Chaz. Was it the World GR86, whatever they ended up naming it in the end?
Yes.
And he was a really good peddler. He was in the AM class, but he was on par with a lot of the, what they call the pro drivers there, and I think he's certainly going to be one to watch as the season goes on, because he was just terribly, terribly unlucky at the first 2 rounds of the season at Donington Park, just picking up incidents here, there and everywhere. I think took trips to the pits in both races, so we'll be hoping to see a little bit better from him in the future rounds. Obviously, like you say, he's not going to be around for this race, but hopefully we'll see him at Brands Hatch again in about a week's time.
Yeah, it's a very quick fire calendar this time compared to how it used to be in the past. But yeah, in a week we go to Brands Hatch on the Grand Prix circuit. Then we head to Alton Park and we go to the Foster's layout. I'm really looking forward to that. It's going to be the first time that the British Boring Car Championship has been there. And then on the 30th of August, before we go for our sort of mid-season break when iRacing employs its week 13 usual sort of proceedings, we're going to be heading to Knock Hill on the 30th of August, which is going to be a very, very exciting one. That's the first time the championship's been there as well. And then on the 13th of September, we return and go to Snetterton. There is Brands Hatch Indy after that on the 20th of September, but I'm afraid from that point, the 27th of September, Alton Park Island race meeting and the Silverstone International finale do have a slight, and I say slight, question mark over them at the moment, based on something real-world commentary related with yours truly. So we are waiting to see what the situation is there, and when I know, I will let everybody know. But look at all of this as all these cars pile their way out of the pit lane now and make their way onto the circuit. We've got Jack Johns stopping and then going back to the box for some reason. Not quite sure what's going on there. Dan Downing was one that impressed us in the first race meeting of the season, wasn't he, Ed? He was right up there at the sharp end of the field, and I think that he's going to do the same again this time round. It seems like both of the Arena International machines, which are these silver and black fade independents, are very good pedallers in the early stages at least.
Yeah, certainly. And obviously, we were talking about the team's championship. Obviously, Nodaphone were getting some very good pace. And as well, I'm excited to see how Team Red Ring will do. Obviously, they've got Stephen King up there fighting away with Derek Robb. Stephen King was the fastest in practice, so it could be a very good showing for the well, not Audis.
Yes, indeed. It's certainly the pace that we expect from Stephen as well. He is a very, very quick guy in these Jettas. We've also seen Derek Robb in previous seasons of this championship as well, and he's been really, really strong there.
I think was Derek top 10 in both race 1 and 2.
Yes, he did score points in both races. Yeah, he had a really, really good run of it all. Just looking and seeing which other drivers we don't have for this evening. We don't have Stephen Burns, by the look of it, here this evening. Oh, no, we do. Sorry, Stephen, he is there. I didn't see him on the timing screen earlier on, but my apologies, Stephen. Do we have Stuart Clark? We do. Stuart is there in the independent machine. So there's a couple of drivers that are missing, but I can't figure out who. I know that John Tusting isn't there. He's let me know that he's not going to be around for tonight. But who else? It's really bad, isn't it? Really, really bad.
We don't have Jack Johns, but no, he's back out there as well.
Oh, Magic Sakovic we don't have, obviously.
Racing line is out there. Sakovic, obviously. As we previously mentioned. Trying to think of who else. We'll notice it, obviously, when they get up into qualifying, and we'll think, oh, where's this person? And we go, that's why they're not here. But obviously, the drivers just getting the first few laps ready. Obviously, they've had their out laps, and now they're going to be pushing hard. Let's get times on the board sooner rather than later. We saw a mad dash early on at Donington to get laps in, and then there was a bit of a struggle to improve in the latter part of the session. It could have been down, obviously, to track conditions, maybe just drivers pushing that a little bit too hard and picking up incident points. It's going to be intriguing to see if that's going to be the same story here at Silverstone.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be an easy one to get right. It's a very, very tough circuit, and like I said before, it's not a circuit that a lot of people would have had a massive amount of time on, to be honest with you. The car that we are missing other than this is Rob Lundgren. I've just realised. I've just put the numbers together there, and unfortunately we do not have Rob with us for this evening. But we're going to ride on board now with Michael Ellett as the times come in, and it is Stephen King that initially goes fastest, a 1:36.054 for him, second in the championship at the moment, and he now is second in the timing sheets because Henry Morse, the American driver, goes quickest for Team Netcode by 1/10.5 as well, but look how close it is. Top 10 not even separated by a second at this moment in time here, Ed. Looking very, very good. Michael Ellett, who we were on board with there, goes 13th fastest. John Roberts crosses the line and goes 15th. But Henry Morse for Team Netcode, Michael Ellett's teammate, great first lap for him. He'll be over the moon with that.
Definitely. Jake Cranston really struggling. Half a second off of the pace in this early stage of qualifying. Expected him to come out the gates roaring like he did at Donington, but maybe he's playing it a little bit safer, looking after the tyres to give himself something to fight with later on. We did see at Donington a huge drop-off in lap time and performance as the races went on, as the drivers shown through tyres. Obviously front wheel drive, they do lose a lot of grip at the front end fairly quickly, because obviously it's the front wheels having to do everything, putting the power down and obviously getting the rotation through. So it's about getting the tyres in the perfect state in this session.
I think one of the worst things about this car as well is the fact that the rear tyres are so grippy as well. The back end of this car is so planted that it really causes quite a lot of understeer when you want it to over-rotate. But then when it does over-rotate, it's so stiff that it just skips around. Jack Johns crossing the line right now. He is down in the league as car number 12, which shouldn't be the case. He's just gone in to 6th position. He is in car 33, so please do ignore the number at the bottom, which doesn't seem to be right. Dave Waldock, car number 7, is currently in 10th fastest. Dave was the runner-up in the first season of the British Boring Car Championship, racing Dennis Melcher, who was the first ever champion. And the two of them had epic battles throughout the entire campaign. It was really, really good fun to watch. And they continue to return to the series, and we have a very loyal base of drivers for this championship, which I cannot thank enough. But one of them being Mr. Waldock, who is once again on circuit and pushing hard, although backing off at this point actually on this lap. And pulling over for Team Bordeaux, his teammate Patrick Dopart, second quickest at the moment. Ed, he's looking good.
Yeah, he certainly is for Team Bordeaux. Patrick Dopart, the Polish driver, certainly with some good pace beneath him. Obviously, if you're out there with Morse and King, the company, you know you're going to be doing very well indeed. Front row start as well. if it stays as it is, would be very nice. But I think Michael Blake has just put a very good time through. No, we had a purple final sector, but only stays 12th fastest.
Interesting one that for Michael Blake. Unfortunately, doesn't quite have the pace on the rest of the lap by the look of it to completely outdo everybody. So not really putting it together
had
there.
A purple first sector, but nothing in the remaining ones.
So people are finding the pace at certain points of the lap, but just not the right point of the lap by the look of it, unfortunately. They're not quite getting it to be the overall lap they want. You can hear the tyres screaming away for mercy, though, and they're going to be doing that all evening, aren't they, really?
Morse goes quicker up in front, extend his advantage through about 1.5 tenths of a second to Patrick Dopart, and then comes into the pits, gets some fresh tyres, and goes again during the second half of this qualifying session. Jake Cranston did improve up into 4th place, so he's starting to find a little bit more in the car, but needs to really hook up those middle sector, because that was where he lost a huge amount of time.
Luke Austin is the only car that's not put a valid time in at the moment. It's good to see Luke back on track. He is one of the OGs at Alpha Live, the broadcasters. Love Luke to bits. He's got me a lot of work in the past, and he's a really, really good mate. And he is back on iRacing once again. He said that he was literally looking to find a series to race in again, because I think his missus has gone away or something for a few months, and it's literally fits perfectly in, other than pre-season testing, it fits perfectly in that window while she's away. So he's managed to get back onto the rig, back racing again. Unfortunately, back down in 21st place, but still, he's got a valid time on the board now, and he can use the rest of this session to improve on that.
Yeah, exactly. Funny how these things can work out, and it's just the stars aligning for him. Good to see him out on the grid. Hopefully, like you say, it's one to watch throughout the course of the season. Driver development is obviously a thing that we like to champion, Chaz, during our time in the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge that we just had a race on yesterday. It's great to see those drivers evolve, and great to see the drivers here in the British Boring Car Championship get better and better, because like you say, you've got the drivers from the Racing Line League and also from previous iterations of this British Boring Car Championship, and watching them get better and better as the season goes on as well, it's going to be really something to watch. So something else that we need to keep our eyes on and watch for is Michael Blake, because he's improving in the first and second sectors, and we've seen that he has the capability to get those absolute best sectors, but he just needs to get them properly taken together into one lap.
Yeah, that's the thing around this circuit, and in a car like this as well, because it feels like it's got so much grip everywhere. It's hard to get the maximum pace out of the thing, because you either slow it down too much and you turn in like way too much like that, almost looks like a complete curb skip down the inside, or you just have too much confidence in the grip that the car's got and you spin the thing, or the back end steps out and you get this horrible four-wheel drift that it does before it then plays ball and turns in. He goes into the pits. Stephen King was not on an improving lap. Sam Van Olst needs to improve, though. I mean, Sam's usually one of the fastest guys out there. Right now, though, in car number 23, it does say he's in 92. Oh, he is in 92. Who was it that's in 23, then? I was very happy about the fact
23
that...
is Patrick Dopart.
Oh, it was Patrick Dopart, yes, apologies. Yeah, because I was hoping that Patrick was going to get one of these, in inverted commas, Nissans, because they used to run number 23 quite a lot. Laurent Aiello ran the number in 1999, and Anthony Reid ran it in 1998 and other previous seasons. But Sam Van Olst, down there at the moment in 16th place. He won't be over the moon with that. Let's not forget that the top 10 of this grid, so the top 10 guys that qualify, do get reversed for the second race. So they will have this qualifying session in the first race, but sorry, not the qualifiers get reversed. I do apologise. I've explained that really badly. We have a reverse grid of 10 cars, basically, after race 1. So if you finish in first place, you will then start the second race from 10th on the grid, and everybody else with them gets reversed as well. But this 15-minute qualifying session is just about to go into its final few moments now, Ed, and I think we're getting the same again here. The drivers are pushing very hard on these tyres, but it's just getting more and more rubbered up out there on the surface, and they're not able to get more out of the car and out of the track itself.
I remember you describing it beautifully at Donington, where you can really overdrive this car. It's so easy to do because of how front-wheel drive it is, because obviously the heat is so crucial in the tyres on this iRacing service, and of course with this car itself. It's easy just to push too hard into one corner, and then all of a sudden you've just got no grip for the remainder of your stint in this sort of qualifying session, they like to split them in half, basically go through for about 7 or 8 minutes, come into the pits, go out again for the last bit of the session. But it's so difficult, like you say, to push and push to get that lap time, and you can chase it and actually lose time by overdriving.
Yeah, you really can. It's very easy to do it, and unfortunately for some of the drivers, they have a driving style that is very close to the limit, but then they step over it. As oh, dearie me, I say that, and Simon Price really steps over it, throws the car in. The tyres sounding like paper cups being scraped across a nice glossy wooden desk. But there's a lovely look at the dodgy MOT livery as Simon Price gets back going again. Listen to that diesel roar. Fantastic machines, these Jetters. But you're absolutely right though, Ed. You know, they are easy to drive, hard to drive quickly. And a lot of these drivers have mastered it by now. Some of the drivers still new to it in this championship. I mean, Simon Price, who we saw having the spin there, he's still new to a lot of cars that he races in the leagues that I run on iRacing, but he's faster than Sam Van Alst in this current qualifying session, and Sam is no slouch whatsoever, because when he got pulled as a Vodafone driver with John Bailiff as his teammate, everybody was saying those two are going to be the team's champions.
And at the moment, it's still up in the air. It could be Team Red Ring. They've got some very capable drivers, but Derek Robb, after some great performances at Donington, is really struggling in his qualifying session. He was certainly getting points. He was I think he was 10th in the first race, and I think was he on the podium in the second? I remember he was doing quite well for himself up in the front for majority of that second race. As Jake Cranston improves and does find some time, one of the few drivers that has late on in this qualifying session up onto the front row of the grid, but still nobody can match Henry Morse out in front.
Now Henry's done a belter of a lap time, and again done it early on in the session. He did improve after that, but still it was still quite early in the session when the time came through. Sam Van Alst, looking at his results, had a 3-point score and a 4-point score, so he finished 8th and 7th over the course of the night at Donington Park as well. So he's, again, no slouch, but he's not been able to break into podium positions and top fives yet. So I'm wondering whether we can see him back up to the front end of the order. If he gets lucky with a reverse grid, maybe he could fly right up there. We've also got John Roberts out there on circuit. John, a real veteran of leagues that I'm involved with one way or another. I've raced with him for nearly 10 years now, actually, with John. Some of the very first league racing I ever did was the fabled BSR TC back in the Kia in 2014-15, and John was there, and we've been friends ever since and raced together and worked on broadcasts and all sorts together ever since. He's certainly a good staple to have around, is John.
Yeah, good old John Roberts. He likes to call himself safety granddad. He likes to sort of stay around the back and keep plugging the lap times and getting good results. I mean, it certainly works for him. I think he could be one of the drivers to surprise us later on in the season if he can get a good qualifying session under his belt, stay out of trouble, get a reverse grid pole position. You know, the sky's the limit for a lot of these drivers because of, obviously, that prize for finishing 10th place in the first race if you keep your nose clean. And we're having a look here, and you talk about Simon Price, the development he has throughout his time on iRacing. He's currently in 15th place. All it takes is for some squabbling up ahead. Finds himself in 10th place, reverse grid pole possession, and that could really throw the cat amongst the pigeons. But obviously it's too early to be predicting too many things, but there's so many potential storylines already for the making here in this third season of the British Boring Car Championship. Just waiting for qualifying to come to a close, and obviously because it is heat racing, Chaz, they won't get a chance to finish their lap, so Kyle Ridley needs to get a bit of a shift on if he's to cross the line. I think he might be one of the last drivers to do so. Does break the timing beam, only just, but I don't think the lap actually gets the time. It actually has time to come up and count for him.
No, I don't think it actually did, you know. I don't think it came through and gave him the time. So unfortunate there for Kyle Ridley, but still, he's inside the top 10, and it's Henry Morse on pole position. Jake Cranstone alongside him, with Patrick Dopart and Stephen King on row 2. John Bailiff and Daniel Downing next up on row 3, ahead of Jack Johns and Kyle Ridley on row 4. Stephen Burns is 9th ahead of Andy Fox, who rounds out the top 10, with Tim Rutten and Dave Waldock making up row 6. Tim will be really pleased with that, considering Dave is almost a previous champion. Simon Price is 13th ahead of Stuart Clark, with Michael Blake and Sam Van Alst down there in 16th place. I mean, Michael finished second last season as well, so two real guys there that should be further up the order. Michael Elliott next up in 17th ahead of Derek Robb, Tom Minot and then John Roberts, with Luke Austin at the back of the field in 21st place. So I always remember there's no decent camera here at Silverstone because it looks here from behind the grid, and it's something I always forget to fix between sessions. You can see that the grandstand is absolutely packed, though, for the British Boring Car Championship. Everybody ready to go here and loving it. Any quick predictions before we get going, Ed?
I'm going to be keeping my eyes on Stephen King. I think he was someone to really watch out for in the practice session. Didn't quite get the best qualifying, but watch out for him because he's really good with his racecraft.
Absolutely is. He's there in the Team Red Ring car with the yellow windscreen banners and wing mirrors. His teammate Derek Robb is a bit further back, but he's got the red windscreen banner and mirrors. Henry Morse now will watch the lights and get ready to go. He is behind the massive Abbey symbol that became Santander, that is no longer. But still, round 3 of the British Boring Car Championship by Abruzzi Racewear from Silverstone is underway, and the revs drop, the smoke rises, and it's a good start by Jake Cranstone. He creeps up alongside Henry Morse. John Bailiff gets a good getaway as well, moves over to the left-hand side, keeps it nice and tidy, nice and tame. The whole field remaining 2 by 2 as they go around the first corner for the first time. Everyone behaving themselves in the early stages. Dan Downing's had a bit of a poor start, actually lost 2 places already. Kyle Ridley and Jack Johns the beneficiaries of that. But again, a very tidy start in the opening stages here, Ed. It's nice and tame, but here we go. This is where it's going to kick off.
Yeah, Stephen King trying to go up the inside of Patrick Dopart, and I think he gets the move done as they were going 3 wide there. Jack Johns trying to get in the mix, as was John Bailiff. I think I saw a Team Notaphone car in the mix, and it was. Now they're going side by side. Kyle Ridley, I think, just waiting there in the wings, but Jack Johns is just edging ahead as the car's careening down through Ireland.
You can't help but laugh sometimes when you see these things, can you? As there's nearly a pinch. They've got to be so careful with wheel-to-wheel contact in this championship because these cars really don't deal well with it. They rattle off each other and ping off like little rubber balls, like them horrible little bouncy balls that your kids get at the arcade. There is a bit of damage on Jack John's car already. I mean, Jack will tell you that that's just mandatory anyway. Side by side with John Bailiff. The two of them absolutely glued to each other. He's got to be careful braking on the grass and the gravel on the outside. Bailiff runs a little bit deep. Johns turns in and the two of them rub together, but you can see just how the cars sort of morphed through one another there. That is part and parcel of racing these Jettas, I'm afraid, as now Jack understeers wide and Kyle Ridley nearly catches him out. The two of them right together. Tom Minot's just lost a place further down to Michael Elliott, but he has gained 1 net over this first lap. The only driver to gain more than 1 actually at this moment in time is Kyle Ridley, the Australian, currently in 6th position, right in the thick of this fight. Sideways round Cops and saves it, and does he? Yes, but he's going to run very wide, upset a lot of people because he's mowing the grass. Moves over to the right and smacks into Dan Downing. They get very lucky that Dan doesn't go pinging off the circuit there with that moment, but now he's lost a few more places. So there's the commentator's curse coming into effect. Foxy goes through as well. He's got his teammate right behind him now in the form of Stephen Burns. Then it's Tim Rutten, Dave Waldock, Simon Price, Stuart Clark, Michael Blake, Sam Van Olst, all of them staying pretty much as they were at the start of this race. But now again, we go slipstreaming down towards the hairpin for the second time.
And what manner of carnage will we see into here? As you can see the 2 Jane Fonda cars, they were getting a little bit friendly with one another as soon as that is shooting up the inside. That's the 52 of...
That is Stuart Clark, that is.
Stuart Clark, that is. Just shooting up the inside. Yeah, he
shows on our
number 19 on our timing software.
He got a smack, I think, there by Sam Van Olst, actually, which pushed him up the inside of Michael Blake. Yeah, that's where the contact came in. So, yeah, Stuart will kind of appreciate that, but at the same time might not. Depends if it damages the car, I suppose. They're very hard things, these cars, but you have to be really careful of incident points in this championship. You get 15 and you get a drive-through penalty, and that's only 3 contacts and 3 off-tracks, really, and then you're already driving through the pits unnecessarily. 20 incidents, and you're out of the race. So there's a mix of, it's touring car racing, yes, make contact, but at the same time, it's touring car racing, there is a lot of contact, let's just sort of dumb it down a bit. So I have to be very careful with all this. It's a really strict championship, but at the end of the day, that makes it a bit more challenging for the drivers and makes it more exciting for us.
Oh, absolutely. We love the excitement here, as we might be getting some up ahead as well. There's a little bit of argy-bargy. Stephen King into the back of Jake Cranston, nearly having a domino effect with Henry Morse, who escapes any contact himself. And actually, that's given a great hurry up to Jake Cranston, who's got a run, just getting a nose alongside up the inside, but will have the outside for the hairpins. They go side by side.
Unbelievable stuff. Jake Cranstoun yet again trying to find his way to the front of the field in the early stages. He didn't have to do so at Donington Park that much. Look, you can see him try and tuck in, and then the cars slingshot their way out the corner. It's one of my favourite camera angles in motor racing, that is. It used to be such a well-used angle in the British Touring Car Championship in the 90s, and I'm really glad that thanks to the wonders of iRacing and the camera dampening that it provides, we're able to replicate it in such a way. It looks wonderful, if I do say so myself. But look at this epic stream of cars. It's just constant. The frame rate's going to go to absolute death around here, because it always seems to at Bridge, as Luke Austin throws one up the inside of Tom Minot. Gets through. Tom's going to then look down the inside again, is he? No, he's not. Luke goes through. I feel sorry for these guys, though, because it's nowhere near point-scoring positions. It's actually Stephen Burns that's in that final spot at the moment. And yet again, Ed, we find the two Team Jane Fonda cars inside that top 10.
Yeah, which is good for them and their team's championship charge. But they still won't be outscoring Stephen King, who's currently occupying third place for Team Red Ring. That could be a real championship fight is between Jane Fonda and Red Ring, because we've seen...
It's a great sentence in itself, isn't it, really?
It is, to be honest. Only in the boring cars can you hear commentary like that. But it's fair to say they are close, because Stephen King is very quick, but also let's not discount Derek Robb. Sure, he's not having the best of races down in 18th place, but we know he has it in him. The races that we saw from him at Donington Park are a real promise of what's to come. As oh dear, we talked about how he's not having a great of race, and it seems to be going from bad to worst. Oh, nearly catastrophic as he gets tagged a third time in all of this arging and barging.
Yeah, I was going to say, well, I know one thing he's got in him right now, and that's Luke Austin, with the way that Luke went into the back of him there. But I think, to be fair, Luke had his intentions made very clear early on, and Derek just didn't want to give him the room, as John Roberts now looks down the inside. There's a bit more contact between the two of them. John's a little bit late on the brakes, tries to avoid any further contact, and actually gets some as a result. He said at the end of the last race meeting, I've not seen that many 4Xs, as we call them, which is 4 incident points for contact, since the BSRTC. So certainly the contact is rife out there. These cars are very sensitive to them as well, which is a huge shame. You can't really lean on each other and get a 0x, as we call it, which doesn't add to your incident points, but it's there to sort of just say you have made contact with this car. It's almost like when you just rest your bumper on a bollard in the car park or something. You're probably not going to damage your car doing it, but at the same time, it's just let you know that that's what's happened. You know, there's that tiny little touch as we see Simon Price going past Michael Ellett. Simon's unfortunately dropped 3 places from where he started, but he's having a good run so far, is Simon, considering this isn't a car he's driven before. Yeah,
he's getting along quite nicely. Obviously, a little bit away from the points at the moment, but the way they're battling out in front, anything can happen. So these drivers just need to keep themselves on the straight and narrow and keep themselves out of trouble before the trouble finds them. Just looking at Jack John's car as well, who's in the thick of that battle for 6th place. You can see the left-hand side completely compressed. The men's room sponsorship on the left-hand side is a good tell of it. And then on the right-hand side, you can see nice and pristine how the car's supposed to be looking.
Yeah, absolutely. Looks just as it should for Jack Johns. Of course, it's quite late at night where he is right now. He does live in Dubai, but he's brought a fantastic array of drivers with him to this championship, which I'm ever grateful for. Jack has previously joined me in the commentary box for the Formula One World Championship as well, and he's got a great influence on these wonderful drivers that race in his championship, the Racing Line Jetta TDI Cup. I believe they have another season coming up in the future as well, so do keep an eye out on that and make sure you subscribe to Jack's channel, The Racing Line, as he takes the Racing Line and then goes deep into Brooklands, and Andy Fox tries to say, oh, go on then, boys, if you're going to fight too hard, then I'll take a piece of this as well. We'll go on board with Andy and see how all of this looks. Downing tries not to turn into the rear corner of Jack's car. Andy's got all the lock in the world on, and that's the thing again, because you're racing so closely in this championship, Ed, and you're avoiding contact with one another, you might take lines that are less friendly to your tyres, let's say, and less friendly to the car in general, because of the fact that you're trying to avoid contact with people.
Yeah, and it's all about, let's say, just managing the race. You don't want to give away a potentially high grid position in the second race, because they are battling very close to that all-important 10th place, the reverse grid pole. I think actually just at the tail end we have Stephen Burns for, yeah, we do actually in 10th place, so Steve could be quite happy just to sit behind and take that 10th place because of what it means in the second race of the evening. But obviously any points you can get now will help you out later on in the season. It would be better obviously to finish 9th and win the second race than it is to Actually, I've just had my thought completely stopped as we've just had a bit of a change for a second for the lead of the race. As Jake Cranston just got ahead of Henry Morse, and the battle's continuing on. Cranston around the outside as they come under the bridge. Henry Morse is going to fight for this with all he's got. But look at this, Jake Cranston up the inside, ever so close to contact, but they make it work. But again, they're around the outside. Can Henry hang on? They get ever so close. A bit of a pinch onto the apex. But again, that gives him the space up the inside all the way through Luffield, and he hangs on to the lead of the race.
Fantastic driving that is by Henry Morse. Lovely, lovely stuff. They're still side by side now, and Stephen King's got a great view of this, and then Patrick Dopart's got a great view of that, and John Bailiff's got a great view of that. Fantastic stuff to see this early on in the evening as well. 10 minutes gone already, actually, so technically we're a quarter of the way through the night's racing. As a little bit slideways, there's a new one. Henry Morse there, just kicking the back end out slightly. Stephen King wants a piece of this.
Pushing Morse along.
Yeah, he is. He's giving him
through.
Literal Morse code on the rear bumper of that, not Renault, as now blinking in and out Jake Cranstone. They all break early just to make sure they don't hit each other, and somehow Henry Morse holds on to the lead of the race, and somehow John Bailiff's turned this into an overtaking manoeuvre on Patrick Dopart. They're side by side on the exit now. Cars 22 and 23, Nodaphone versus Team Bordeaux, heading down towards the hairpin again. They need to be careful not to separate themselves from this lead trio, but Henry Morse doing a cracking job of defending this lead at the moment. Stephen King and Jake Cranstone throwing absolutely everything at this. The reigning team's champions, Team Red Ring, as Stephen leans on that rear corner of Jake's car that little bit. You have to be so careful with that. The netcode is rife in these machines. It's like there's a static electricity field lingering around the entire thing. It's like they've got some sort of shields or force fields on. But great racing none the same. I mean, look at that. There was a tiny tap, and Jake Cranstone's car looks like it's been absolutely buried in the left-hand door, but it surely didn't take that much of a hit. That is, again, the sensitivity of this Jetta, but it's part of why we love it. Keeps people on their toes. I did want to point out as well, Ed, that the two Team Jane Fonda cars we mentioned before, of Kyle Ridley and Stephen Burns, who are now either side of Andy Fox, they actually finished 9th and 10th, Ridley then Burns, at the very first race of the season, and got a front row at Donington Park as well, didn't they?
Well, so yeah, they did, yes. So it's par for the course for them at this moment in time. I'm just excited to see Stephen King, because that was lovely by him. He used Henry Morse to almost box Jake Cranston in through Abbey to try and take that second place. It didn't work out, but he's trying those moves, and that's the important thing to do, is to unsettle Jake, not let him get into the rhythm. Obviously not worrying too much about losing Henry Morse. He's still within sight and within about a 10th of Jake at this moment in time, but you've got to think it's sooner rather than later, if you are Stephen King, to get up into second place and properly start challenging for the race lead, as the cones seem to phase through the Jetta for a moment.
Looking a bit further back, Dan Downing has opened a little gap over Kyle Ridley and Andy Fox, and I think that's more down to the fact that they were battling behind before. As John Bailiff goes down the inside of Patrick Dopart again, he's gone a little bit late on the brakes. I said in the first race meeting about the ABS on this car, it's really horrible, because if you do have just that tiny little bit too much lock on, the ABS kicks in like mad, and the car will not behave itself. It will not turn in and do what you want it to, and more importantly, it will not stop either. It really doesn't like coming to a stop, does this Jetta. But wow, oh wow, this is close racing at the moment, as Foxy down the inside of Kyle Ridley has a bit of a look, doesn't make it work though as he goes through the left-hander. Ian Fox, good to see you, mate. He's a big fan of the British Boring Car Championship, and his brother Andy raced out there since the very beginning, and he's saying 4 seconds covering the top 10 is absolutely mad, and he's absolutely right. I mean, it's just gone over 5, but flipping heck, just does show how quick and close this championship is, doesn't it? The level is just amazing, as Dan Downing is now into the pits as he hit the incident limit.
Must have been involved in one too many 4X contacts. Obviously, it doesn't seem to be too significant, but we heard from the drivers at Donington Park that the incident points are dished out fairly liberally by iRacing for contacting these Jettas, and I think, and Downing, you can see, not taking a stop into the pits for any repairs, so that was a drive-through penalty on the incident limits.
The man that's 5th in the championship coming into this race meeting as well, and that's just going to throw him right down to the back of the order. But that's the thing, that's why you need to be so careful, is that you can't afford to have a single drive-through. It will drop you right to the back of the pack in this sort of series. You know, it's not like it just affects you a little bit, completely destroys any chance of scoring points and destroys your race. Sure, they may not all be your own fault, those incident points, but at the end of the day, You've got to be out of those scenarios if you can help it. Cameraman's going to spin around and fall over here as Sam Van Olst looks down the inside of Stuart Clark. He, Stuart and Tim Rutten are all just outside of the points, but look at this. Tim is literally staring at the back of a point-scoring position and reverse grid pole there, which is currently held by Dave Waldock. I'd be really excited to see what Dave can do from pole position in the second race of the night. That's another point as well, everybody. Don't forget, we do have another race coming up this evening, which is the second race of the night, but still the same length, same format. There's no feature races like we had in previous seasons, but look at this battle going on in front here. You've got Burns having a look at the Fox, and then Fox trying to have a go at Bailiff, and now Tim Rutten goes up the inside of Dave Waldock, tries to make it work, nearly having contact. He blinks in and out for just a moment. Not the best time for Tim to do that, is it? But it's not like he's controlling that situation. Nearly 3 wide in front as well, flipping heckhead. This has got crash written all over it.
Oh, look at it, they are squeezing each other even before they get to the corner down the straight, and there's another tag as the rear end gets very loose there for, I think, Jane Fonda of Stephen Burns. But again, hangs on just about to the car as he goes into Copson out and is up into 7th position. Actually, both Jane Fonda cars, 6th and 7th. That's going to be a huge haul of points if they can hang on.
Absolutely would be, as now Bailiff defending for his life that final points position. It was just John creeping slightly over to the left, wasn't it? He was the car all the way on the right in that scenario. They were 3 wide. I don't think he knew they were 3 wide, either that or he hadn't had the call out, but he was still going left and there wasn't enough room for 3 cars there. They got very lucky because, like I say, they can ping off each other very sporadically. Can these machines? Oh no, Bailiff's gone deep into the hairpin. Tim Rutten goes down the inside, says thanks very much. That is reverse grid pole and a point scoring position, as now into the back of him goes Stuart Clark. A little bit of a kiss there. There's the 2 independents here with the 2 Vodafone cars. But look, all of a sudden, what was the battle for the final 10th place, or the final point scoring spot, has now become a battle of like 6 or 7 cars all joining on with one another. This is what happens. You lose on one battle and then you end up at the front of another one. Stuart Clark now looking down the inside of Bailiff, goes to the inside line. Bailiff tries to squeeze him. Clark goes in a little bit deep, rattles off the side of him. It's another set of incident points there for Bailiff, and I'm not sure if we're going to see him come into the pits or not, but he's got to be surely close to that limit.
John Bailiff hanging over to the right hand side, and you judged that perfectly, Chaz. I was going to say he was lucky to have avoided any further dangers after really just mucking up onto the brakes, wasn't it? Just getting that ABS and the car goes in a straight line. Very fortunate to not get contact and only to lose the one place. But then sadly lost even more and will find himself all the way back with Dan Downing, who himself has had that drive-through penalty earlier on.
Oh no!
Oh, there's a bash there as Henry Morse able to hang on to it. He's going to be pushed wide, but I think he's just gotten away with it. But this could be a bit of a bump and run here by Jake Cranston into the back of Henry Morse. Henry, though, seems to have enough drive out the corner that he can live to fight another day, and all of a sudden the door is being opened wide for King to come through. Stephen King, could he be able to take that second place onto the brakes? They struggled to keep out of the ABS to get it stopped in time. There's enough of an overlap that King, with a good drive out of the corner, might have the move made to get the inside line down through Bridge, but then up towards Priory and Brooklands, he might struggle.
Fantastic racing yet again, but this gives Henry Morse the chance to break away. Stephen King down the inside, and he is going to be in front of Jake Cranstone now. Swoops around the outside with confidence, and Patrick Dopart's going to be eyeing up a manoeuvre here as well to get his podium position on the board. Ooh, he looks-ish at the inside, scaring Jake more than anything. You've got Jack Johns and Kyle Ridley not too far behind this. They can see it going on ahead of them, and they want a piece of it as Dopart has now got past Jake Cranstone. I think Jake might have hit the incident limit, you know. Or has he? No, he's just a bit slow in this last sector, whether it's damage or not.
I think he was just thrown out of position more than anything else. As soon as you're on the outside through Bridge, if you've got cars close behind, he found himself in a battle with, I think that was Patrick Dopart, through Priory Brooklands Luffield, and sadly lost out.
Dan Downing making his way back through the order. He's just got past Luke Austin. He's got Derek Robb and Tom Minot having their fight just in front. Dave Waldock is all over the back of Stephen Burns as well for 7th position. Constant battling everywhere here in this race. That is how the field is spread out at the moment. Again, we've got these clumps of cars, haven't we, that are just sort of chasing each other and sticking in close quarters with only a minute and a half left of this race to go, this first race of the night here in the CDM British Boring Car Championship by Abruzzi Racewear. Big shout to our sponsors, Abruzzi Racewear Sim Stickers and Sim Racing Magazine, and a huge thank you to them for sponsoring the championship and getting on board with it all. Hope everybody is enjoying the show so far and the wonderful liveries that we have on display. I know Henry Morse is going to be pretty happy at this moment in time, though, because we've not had a race winner other than Jake Cranstone so far this season. and he is sitting there in 4th place at the moment. What about King and Dopart? They've had podiums each, I think, haven't they, at this point? Kyle Ridley got a podium, Downing got one, Dopart's had one, and Stephen King. Yeah, they both finished 3rd before, so this would be a season best result for Stephen King. Sure, we've only had 3 races, so it's not difficult to call it a season best if he's only had a couple of shots at it, but still. More battles going on here, Ed. Downing and Minot this time, outside of the points, but they still want to have a fight.
Yeah, Minot all the way around the outside, Downing up the inside. This is going to be good for Downing if he can get higher up the order as much as possible. Won't be anywhere near the reverse grid pole position, but still within shot of points at least for the second race of the evening, as there's contact there. Tom Minot just misjudging the brakes in towards Brooklands. Around the outside though through Luffield, and up the inside goes Derek Robb for Team Red Ring. They're leaning on each other still, but carrying on.
Tom's got a fascination with turning into the rear quarter of Derek Robb's car. He can't disappear, Sunshine. They remain side by side. 5 seconds left to go. The leaders are now on the final lap of the race. And it's Henry Morse and the Team Netcode machine, basically the old Nescafe Renault Lagunas. Then Stephen King, Team Red Ring, the old Audi Quattro livery, the factory team as it was. Then Patrick Dopart, Team Bordeaux, which was the Ultron, SO Ultron Peugeots of 1998.
Beautiful cars they were.
Yeah, they were very,
I have to say, they were wonderful.
Yeah, it was actually relatively easy to do that livery as well. The shapes are pretty much identical, but yeah, it was quite easy to do that one. And one of the easiest liveries was this one, which is Jake Cranstone. Duncan Marai has actually asked in the chat about this one. This was the Arena International Independence livery that was on the Renault Lagunas in 1999. I think they raced at the end of 98 as well. It was raced by Russell Spence and Will Hoy. Russell Spence very famously going over the catch fencing at Alton Park at the end of qualifying, nearly hitting Alan Menu's stationary car. Only a few corners left for the leaders while these two change around. Kyle Ridley parks on the apex to defend from Jack Johns, but it's looking like for Team Netcode it's going to be a race victory, and Henry Morse scoops his way around the final corner, and round 3 of the British Boring Car Championship is going to go the way of American Henry Morse. Very well done to Henry. Stephen King finishing in 2nd place behind him with Patrick Dopart 3rd. And what about Ridley and Johns? How's that going to go? It is Kyle Ridley in 5th, Jack Johns in 6th. 7th is Stephen Burns ahead of Dave Waldock, Andy Fox, and Tim Rutten is going to get his first championship point of the season, and that is going to be reverse grid pole position for the Dutchman, and he will be over the moon with that one. Sam van Olst making his way through that pack as well, but not able to score any points in that race. But a great result that for Henry Morse. Takes his first race win of the season and decides to go for a lap of the Grand Prix circuit to go and celebrate.
Well, won't be able to do the cold one because we have to go to the warm-up session. A little break in between the 2 races, race 1 and race 2. But that first race was only 20 minutes. But if we put a highlights package together, it could have easily been 30 minutes. The amount of excellent racing we had at the front, in the mid-pack, and then towards the tail end. There was so much racing going on that you couldn't have fit it all into that 20-minute race.
Absolutely not. And let's not forget the Mediocre Cup for Independence as well. Obviously known lovingly back in the day, the Michelin Cup for Independence. Jake Cranstone takes the victory in that category with Jack Johns 2nd and Andy Fox in 3rd. But it's Henry Morse who takes the overall race win for Team Netcode. Then it's Team Red Ring and Team Bordeaux. 2nd and 3rd it's Stephen King and Patrick Dopart. Jake Cranstone 4th ahead of Kyle Ridley, who gets a top 5 finish. Jack Johns finishes in 6th just behind him with Stephen Burns 7th. Dave Waldock in 8th. Andy Fox up in the top 10. And Tim Rutten getting a top 10 finish, championship points and reverse grid pole. He's got Stuart Clark in 11th. Sam van Olst was next up with Michael Blake 13th, Michael Ellett in 14th. Then it was Simon Price, Daniel Downing, Tom Minot and Derek Robb, with Luke Austin 19th, John Roberts in 20th and John Bailiff in 21st. But again, just shows you that the slowdown penalties are absolutely savage. And John was saying that he got a cone stuck in his car, which was what was affecting the pace of the thing. So I think he had to come in and get that fixed and basically get the car sorted out.
Wow, that was. I didn't realise that would affect the car so badly. I thought these jets were made of stronger stuff, but it turns out not the case.
Absolutely not. Now, there's no cars going out for warm-up at the moment. It seems like everybody needs to cool down more than anything else at this moment in time. So what we're going to do is we're going to leave the cameras on auto, everybody, just in case people do decide to head out there on the circuit. The cameras seem to be focused on Stephen King as if he's going to get going. But Ed and I are just going to take a quick break here on Chaz Draycott Media. If you give us a couple of moments, we'll be very, very shortly back, and we'll get race 2 of the evening underway.
the time, 'cause I wanna freeze this moment. Make it mine, hold you close. Now my heart's wide open. When I'm with you, suddenly I feel no pain. Do you make it go away? Do you make it? Stop the time, 'cause I wanna freeze this moment. Make it mine, hold you close. Now my heart's wide open. When I'm with you, suddenly I feel no pain. Do you make it go away? Do you make it? Do you make it go away?
Go on, Stuart, lad. Hello everybody, Chaz Draycott and Ed May here for the CDM British Boring Car Championship by Abruzzi Racewear. Here for rounds 3 and 4 from Silverstone, the old Silverstone international layout which you would have all seen in the past in the British Touring Car Championship in the late 90s and just going into the early 2000s. It's a wonderful, wonderful layout. and we've been enjoying ourselves so far. Ed, we were just discussing then off air the fact that it was just an amazing first race. Last time it was a little bit tame, the first race of the season, but I think the drivers made up for it this time round.
Oh, absolutely. Silverstone has been absolutely wonderful for these drivers to really just let their hair down. It was more of a cagey first race of the season, with them sort of getting a few sighters in, seeing how the competitors drive and race, and then they started to slowly release the shackles in the second. And then here at Silverstone, it was just completely unleashed, wasn't it? No holds barred whatsoever. And they were going at it hammer and tongs. No big incidents, though, which was great to see. Only a few little things here and there. But in terms of the actual quality of racing we were treated to, it was properly good. And Henry Morse, obviously, driver that took the first race victory of the evening, will be starting from 10th position. He obviously, let's not forget, put it on pole position. Are we going to see a second back-to-back, basically, Grand Slam, winning the first race, the second race, and the extra point for pole position to properly take the championship fight to Jake Cranston?
We'll have to wait and see, I suppose. One big talking point from that race was the fact that John Bailiff had his issue with a cone stuck in the car, had to come into the pit lane, but we also saw as well that Dan Downing had to come into the pits due to the incident limit, the incident points, which gave him a warning and meant that he had to go through a drive-through penalty. That cost him all the championship points that he was looking at, and in a championship that scores as few points as this, you would have thought, yeah, that's surely fine, because, you know, it's nice and close, but at the end of the day, you get 15 points for a race victory. If you can just be in 5th place and just do a bit of damage limitation on whoever is up there at the front, they will not run away with the championship. But if you're then having an issue that puts you into the pit lane and then scores absolutely 0 points for your race, that could be important, because nobody out there at all, Ed, is immune to that. You know, it's not like it's down to the pace of a driver, meaning naturally they get more incidents. You know, it could just be that someone is pushing so hard to be at the front of the field that they get a lot of off tracks, and it'll just take one contact with another car to send them over that limit, and they could be dancing on a knife edge.
Exactly. So that's a warning shot to the other drivers, is to be on their best behaviour, isn't it, to avoid incidents like their life depends on, like their race depends on it, as Stephen King continues to get some good laps on the board. The circuit seems to be a little bit cooler than it was in the first race and in qualifying. You can see the track temperature is still a very, very hot 43 degrees.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that this championship employs is the fact that you get the iRacing gives you the chance as a session host to add a weather variation percentage. So you tell it what weather you want, which is just the iRacing default weather, but then from that point you can then choose how far either side of that it could be, and we add a 50% variation in. So it could be a lot cooler, it could be a lot hotter, and it could be a lot more moist in the air, it could be a lot drier. So there's a big mix. Look at that grid, though. Speaking of a big mix, left-hand side of the grid there, completely different nationalities all the way down, which is really cool to see. It's quite an international grid this season, Ed.
Yeah, it certainly is. Obviously, we have plenty of UK drivers. The Brits and Scots well represented. But then, like you say, you've got the likes of Tim Rutten, the Dutchman, on pole position. That's going to be intriguing to see what he can do. We had, obviously, the American win. Will we have a Dutchman, or maybe even the driver from Dubai taking it with Jack Johns?
Well, we'll find out as round 4 is underway. Tim Rutten hops off the line in the lead with Andy Fox next to him. Let's not forget it's reverse grid from the first race. So those that finished inside the top 10 were all reversed for this second race of the evening. And side by side through Copse they go for the first time. Andy Fox right round the outside. 2 independents battling for the front as well. Let's not forget the mediocre cup for independents. We've got Jack Johns and Jake Cranstone in there as well. Cranstone's already gained 1 position from where he started. And Dave Waldock is up there as well. He was the runner-up in the first season of the British Boring Car Championship way back in 2020. It's all very nip and tuck in the middle here. We'll go on board with Stephen King, see how it looks from where he is. Looks a lot more chaotic from the external camera, didn't it, Ed? But right now, when you look at it from here, looks nice and tame, all 2x2.
Yeah, but I don't think these drivers know the meaning of the word tame, do they? From what we saw in the first race, it's going to be getting very intense as the race moves on. But Tim Rutten hanging on to the lead of the race. Up the inside, Jake Cranston already making good headway. Up through into 6th position. Stephen King as well, pushing very hard up into 7th. the moment, Henry Morse just taking it nice and steady. Doesn't need to take any unnecessary risks, because obviously here at the opening few laps, it's where the 4Xs, the incident points, are at the greatest risk of being racked up.
Yeah, there's a bit of side-by-side action in front, a bit of a check-up in the middle of the field there as well, actually. I think Henry Morse involved in that. He's side-by-side with Kyle Ridley, Stephen Burns and Stephen King battling their namesakes to be top Stephen, even though they are spelt differently. For 6th and 7th, Stephen Burns has lost 2 places. Jake Cranstone already up 2 places into 5th. Let's not forget, he's not started from 10th like he did in the second race at Donington Park. He's actually started further ahead than he did in the second race at Donington Park because of having a worse result in race 1. Now, I hope that makes sense. Sam Van Olst is hoping to get a championship point here from Patrick Dopart in front of him. He's definitely going to get one if Patrick keeps that up and mows the grass, because now Van Olst goes up into 10th position. He's not had a great night of it so far, has the Belgian, but he goes through past car number 23. Michael Blake now has to slot in behind. He's got Stuart Clark for company as well. Whole field is just one massive train. Somebody is off somewhere, as Luke Austin is off in the background. I'm not sure if he got any help, but I think Michael Ellett also had some sort of drama as Daniel Downing got past him. Luke recovering and the car getting back on. Let's see what happened to him, Ed.
He's going out of Copson through towards Maggots. Is it just going to be a tap onto the grass? Oh no, he gets a tap from behind, and then the rear end goes. He tries to recover it, but the momentum of the car sends him off into the grass. That was weird because we didn't get a great view of it. We only sort of saw from the onboard a little bit of a tag and a tap.
Yeah, I think it was the Nodaphone car actually behind him of John Bailiff that was down his inside. I don't think Luke knew that he had quite the overlap there as they went into Maggots and Beckett's. Derek Robler looking down the inside of Simon Price, Daniel Downing and Stuart Clark side by side. Car 52 round the outside, but goes way too deep, and Downing goes through. There's more battles going on further up here because Henry Morse is side by side with Stephen King, Kyle Ridley, then Cranstone and Burns are side by side as well. So much battling going on, Ed. I love this. I'm sure you can hear the smile on my face from there.
Yeah, you certainly can, as Jake Cranston is battling away with Stephen Burns. Stephen is not taking this sitting down though, is he? Trying to hang it all the way around the outside through Copse. If he's able to stay there, he should get a good drive out of the corner because Jake's being forced tighter through. They carry on going, but Jake with a little bit of a nose ahead could be enough of an advantage as they come through Maggots, and yes, slots up into 5th place. And look who's there to pick up the pieces. As we saw, I think that was Stephen King taking a position, was getting through on Stephen Burns, but there was contact up ahead, Chaz.
Yeah, I think there was contact between Dave Waldock and Andy Fox actually. Tim Rutten's car seemingly all straight. I think he might have had a tap on the rear, but Foxy's now going to try and get around the outside for the race lead. He's going to try and get a cut back. Jack John's being careful as well. Dave Waldock in the middle of this. How are they all going to fan this out on the exit? Because Foxy gets up the curb. Jack Johns is boxed in. He's got nowhere to go here. This is perfect for Tim Rutten, other than the fact that Jake Cranstone is starting to close in on all of this. John's round the outside through bridge. Great camera angle as they go through there. John's down the inside, and look at that, Waldock's on the outside now, and Cranstone says thanks very much. Fantastic opportunism. That's exactly what he did at get your words out, Chaz. It's exactly what he did at Donington Park as well. Opportunistic, and all of a sudden it's stitched up that gap between the two fights, and Stephen King's all over the back of Waldock already.
And that was exactly how he lost out to Patrick Dopart in the closing laps of the first race. He was forced, he tried to hang it around the inside through bridge, but then stuck on the outside in towards Priory and Brooklands, nowhere to go, and lost the position. So he learned from that and put it into practice brilliantly to get up into 4th place. He's a really big mover in this field. Stephen King and Henry Morse are just there waiting in the wings as we see a beautiful shot of the cars cutting their way through Copse. Ooh, that's Blake very loose at the rear end. I think Downing got a good view of that and steered way over to the right hand side of the circuit to avoid it. They carry on side by side. Michael Blake in the might just fit car all the way around the outside. Is he able to hang on? I think so. He's just about got that done. Brilliant stuff.
Yeah, nice defensive stuff by Michael Blake there. Great commitment. Stuart Clark is right behind them as well. This is just awesome racing.
Johns are going at it.
Yeah, they absolutely are. Foxy and Johns, as Cranstone now sitting in 4th place again, waits for the opportunity to come to him here. Tim Rutten's not able to break away. There's contact wheel to wheel between Foxy and Johns. I think they both just about get away with it. Stephen King and Henry Morse still side by side in the background. But look, all of a sudden, everybody is in second place. Andy Fox now ahead of Jack Johns. What's Cranstone going to do? Watch this. He's going to go to the inside line. No, forces Jack to go to the inside line. Throws it up the inside of Foxy, but it doesn't work. Now that's going to check everybody up behind him as well. It didn't need to go that way, Jack, but he's gone for it, and he's absolutely sent it. Now Waldock wants a piece of it. Ridley and Burns are side by side. There's contact further back. I think Tom Minot and Michael Elliott maybe. No, Jack Johns. Jack Johns has had big contact.
Waldock's gone through.
Yeah, Waldock
Waldock's
says
gone
thanks
through.
very much.
Cranston's down as well. Something must have happened between Johns and Cranston.
Typical
Both
Chaz.
of them losing out.
Chaz looks away and it all goes to pot.
Exactly. So that's your curse, the commentator, is your eyes. As soon as you look away, it all just completely gets thrown upwards into the air. And it was actually a check-up ahead. It was Andy Fox going very slow through the corner, as he's entitled to do. He can basically set the pace. Jack Johns basically hits in the front and then gets to hit up the back and finds himself in 4th place. So not a huge amount of damage done, but a lot of time lost. He's now got no real comfort in front. Can maybe get some slight slip from Dave Waldock out in front. There's what's gone on here. Stuart Clark again with a bit of an incident. And that's a huge amount of damage there on the right front. Is that car driving straight? I'm not sure if it is.
Something went on back here. I think Derek Robb got involved, and then ahead of him there was more of an incident. So Derek's on the left of Bailiff. Bailiff then goes down the inside. Oh, Simon Price is sideways. Robb's down the inside. Bailiff's sideways. Oh, Price nails the side of Elliott. And Stuart Clark.
Let's have a look, because I'm not entirely sure. That might have been Bailiff who just tagged for a moment the car ahead. I want to have a look at that again, because I think that really just upset the rhythm.
Apologies, we've gone to the wrong incident here. There was more of a drama at the hairpin as well.
Ooh.
Let's have a look then. Simon Price, John Bailiff.
What's happened to Dave Waldock's had an incident as well throughout all of this, so we'll come back to that in a bit.
I think
it was just a tag. Oh, actually, it was already going. It was. Yeah. Simon was already going before there was any contact at all, actually. If there was, it was incredibly light. Not anything that would have changed the momentum that car was going in. This was something that happened to Michael Blake just a little while afterwards. And then I think we have to catch up to what happened to Waldock. But for now, let's see Michael Blake gets in towards Abbey. It's just far too late on the brakes. The ABS kicks in and...
Well...
well then.
Oh no, and then Derek Robb gets in it as well and then gets smacked again by Patrick Dopart. There's been more drama after that for Tom Minot as well, actually. I think there's even more of a kick-off.
Waldock, it keeps going bad for worse. He's out of it all of a sudden. He's all of a sudden dropped out of the points completely. So we'll have a look at the first incident, but we've got so much to catch up on because this was Tom Minot having a big old scrap, I think it's fair to say. And then is he going to get tagged around for his troubles by John Roberts?
Yes.
Yes, just on the exit of Brooklands in towards Luffield. It just carries on going, and then I think that probably takes him over the incident limit.
Yeah, I'm not sure what he's doing there.
He's trying to get into the pits. He's trying to get into the pits, and oh, dearie me.
That is...
takes out a couple of drivers.
That is not
in the
good.
process, unfortunately.
That was very,
what
very
happened to Dave Waldock? This was earlier on. Actually, no, this was the aftermath of one of his earlier incidents, I think, because he was battling away for 3rd place and then drops way, way back. And this was the second one. This was him just getting sent way, way wide, misjudging the turn-in, doesn't have enough grip. But something happened earlier that saw him drop back from 3rd.
He's down the inside of Foxy. Oh,
and again, just the tap causes the over-rotation. And then Jack John says, thank you very much, as does Henry Morse. And then the whole gaggle of cars come through. And that was where he was then pushed off just a few corners afterwards.
Yeah, that was...
So I think now we're all caught up after a manic few laps.
Duncan Murray hits the nail on the head. And there go the driving standards. Yes, welcome to the British Boring Car Championship, everybody. That's not going to be normal, but those few moments between Tom Minot and John Roberts really were not good. That was not nice to see. Tom seemingly didn't see the other cars there. It's easy to lose it on the brakes and so on. I mean, if I'm honest with you, it was the car that went down the inside. I didn't quite see who it was that went into the side of Dan Downing, but somehow Dan Downing is now up 6 places from where he started, despite the fact he got caught up in all that. I think it was Michael Blake, wasn't it, that went into the side of the other guys. He went way too hot on the brakes into the hairpin. But yeah, that was a little bit crazy, that. So we'll catch up it's Tim Rutten still leading this race. Andy Fox in second place, Jack Johns in third. Henry Morse finds himself in fourth position there. And Tom Minot has apologised to Stuart Clark, saying he lost all spatial awareness with what was going on. He was trying to get into the pits but didn't realise that he was there on the right-hand side. So fair enough, at least he's apologising for it. But yeah, the moments leading up to that between himself and John were not great, to say the least. It looked like a lot of retaliation. It may not have been the case, but it certainly looked that way, which is not what we want to see.
It wasn't pretty, to say the least, but thankfully for John Roberts' race, he certainly came off the better for it.
Yeah, he's getting 7 places.
A few points away, isn't he? Only a few positions away from a point-scoring position. Dave Waldock's currently trying to chase that down, but he's got a few seconds to try and make up, doesn't he? 6 seconds the gap from 11th to 10th. So Dan Downing seems to be quite comfortable where he is at the moment. But this is a battle that's going to be getting closer and closer as Jack Johns chases down a race victory. Andy Fox as well in the mix. Let's not discount him. Tim Rutten, he's doing a great job to just hang on and let all of the carnage unfold in behind him.
Yeah, this is exactly what Tim wanted as well. He had a bit of a rough pre-season test, did Tim, but he was still pretty quick when he needed to be. Him and his effective teammate Stuart Clark, running the same livery that Mark Blair ran on the Vauxhall Vectra in the late 90s, are certainly doing a good job at the moment. And they've both shown decent pace, but just always just outside of the top 10. They're always either 11th or 12th, these two. Jack Johns can smell blood in the water here. He definitely wants a race victory. And Foxy, well, he is the segue to getting that win. So if Foxy can keep the pace up and close back in on Tim Rutten, which it looks like he can do over the course of 1 or 2 corners here, then Jack Johns will have the door open for him, I'm sure. We need to think about the independents as well. Never mind having the door open. Jack Johns decides to headbutt it open.
He's done that again.
That's the second time. It's way too opportunistic. Or not even opportunistic. Way too optimistic, Jack. Way too optimistic.
Is he trying to go into the pits? Is that going to be another incident point? No, he's seemingly carrying on going. I thought he was cutting over to the right to try and slot into the pits, but stays in behind Henry Morse, who's now going to see a little bit of a move up the inside in towards Copse. Is he going to go for it? Is he going to be forced to go for it because of how close Jack Johns is to him? Has to actually go to the inside, not to go for the move, but to rather cover off the advances of Jack. This is going to be getting very dangerous very quickly as Jake Cranston arrives on the scene. Hot as you like. Very quick up the inside and going to look for a move. Is he on Jack? Going towards Maggots. And through they go. This is again a little bit of argy-bargy as Jack Johns gets contact all of a sudden. Netcode, I think, forces the cars together. And Cranston, that could be huge for the championship. He's going to be scoring no points as it stands because the car's going to go streaming on by. And he's currently in 10th, but Dave Waldock's going to blitz by him, surely.
It's just Jack was just turned into him like he wasn't there again, as Stephen King's now late on the brakes. Oh, goodness me. You can tell he's low on incident points now because Jack was definitely thinking better of that. He didn't want a piece of that. But it just looked like Jack was just turning in on him like he wasn't there. It was just into the right-hander. That was the incident earlier on. But we need to look back at this. Jake Cranstone trying to go down the inside, but watch the red car on the left. You can see Henry Morse on the inside line.
We'll have a look. Yeah,
but look, he just turns into him like he's not there, and then after that there's more and more contact. He gets sideways, and then the contact from King hooks Jack onto the back of Cranstone's car. And then, I mean, there wasn't really much Jack could have done about that, I don't think, because they all had to stay in it so it didn't check up. But the initial contact, he just turned into the back of Henry like he wasn't on the inside.
And Fox is into the pit, so Fox has hit the incident limit
and
has come in from second place. Something might have happened between him and Morse. There might have been a little bit of contact, just a touch, but that sent him over. And now Tim Rutten, he has no rear gunner. Essentially what Fox was doing, great defensive driving, keeping Henry Morse and the chasing back at bay. Tim hasn't really had to do a lot of defending driving as a result of that, but now he's going to have his work cut out for him because Henry Morse only 1 and a bit seconds back. And then the Wolves will start clawing at the door. The chasing bunch of cars, the Gallagher, they need to sort themselves out before they worry about win this race, because at the moment it looks like none of them are even going to finish, let alone get anything from this race.
Dan Downing's gained 8 positions in this race so far, so too has John Roberts. John's actually just gained his 9th one as Michael Elliott's just suddenly disappeared, actually, and seemingly disconnected as Downing's late on the brakes. What a send that is on Sam Van Hulst. I'm not sure Sam won't appreciate that too much, but he goes down the inside as Henry Morse...
got to be close to the limit. He jumped out of the way.
Yeah, he did, and now look at that. Jack Johns and Steve Burns together in front as well. Jack moves over to the right-hand side, says, no, Please don't try this inside line, mate. Burns says, I will. And now I'm going to try the outside line through the next left-hander. He manages to get it done. They're still battling behind, though. But you're absolutely right. They must be close to the incident limit here as Downing goes late on the brakes. There's a tiny touch, I think, between the two of them. They just rub panels. They might get away with that. They won't get away with that, though. There was contact there. It certainly didn't display contact on our screen, but you could hear the noise, and there was a touch. And I'm wondering whether Downing will get his second drive-through of the night. Doesn't look like it. But Henry Morse is doing a cranstone at the moment, isn't he? Doing a cranstone, I should say. Sorry. The race 1 winner, 8 places gained at this moment in time. He's got 3.5 minutes to get ahead of that man there, Tim Rutten. Tim is just doing everything he needs to right now, but he was 0.7 of a second slower on that last lap, and Henry Morse is only 0.8 behind. And look who else is going well in this second race, again, here, Ed. Kyle Ridley, benefiting from all the chaos, and he's gained 3 places up into 3rd.
Team Jane Fonda are going to be absolutely loving this result if it stays the way it is. Carl Ridley on the podium, Stephen Burns up in 5th place. Some really good points going their way for the team's championship should they carry on going and keep it on the board. I wonder, are we going to see, like you say, a Cranston-esque performance at Donington here at Silverstone with Henry Morse? He put it on pole position, won the first race. Verska shot him all the way down to 10th, but good, clever racing has seen him just slowly gain those positions and get himself where he needs to be right now. Whereas in second place, with a bit of time to go,
2 more laps, I think,
plan out his race winning manoeuvre should it come to it. But obviously Tim Rutten, he hasn't had to do a lot of defending. He hasn't used his tyres as much as Morse has done, just chucking it up the inside, getting it offline, having to defend his positions as well. Tim's just been able to keep his race going at a steady pace, and maybe that's left him something in reserve to fight with.
You better hope so, because right now Henry Morse is just 0.3 of a second behind him as they cross the line now to start the penultimate lap of round 4 of the CDM British Boring Car Championship by Abruzzi Racewear. Thanks also to our sponsors Sim Stickers and Sim Racing Magazine for their continued support of this epic championship that has come back straight away kicking out of the gate. There has been no remorse at all from this championship. No remorse from Morse either, to be honest. He's all over the back of Tim Rutten right now as they go into Maggotts and Beckett's. I think he's going to play it patiently for just a moment here. He's going to see what he can do, because Kyle Ridley behind is certainly going to pounce when he can. Look at that, Morse focusing on the exit. There is Ridley filling the mirrors. Then Stephen King up there in 4th place. He's having a pretty good run so far tonight, is Stephen King. Finished 2nd in the earlier race, did he not? And now he's up there in 4th place for this race. So he's definitely going to be happy with how this one's going, but this man needs to keep his wits about him right now, and that's Henry Morse. He needs to just do what he can do. The American has been so well composed up to this point. And to be honest, it looks like he's got a very clean car as well, actually, Ed, considering that he's come through from 10th on the grid to get up into 2nd place. There's a little bit of the bodywork pushed in that left rear corner, I'd argue, but doesn't look like a lot, does it?
No, and actually, Kyle Ridley looks to be the quickest of the bunch. Henry Morse has closed up, and he's going to look for a move up the inside here. Tim Rutten goes around the outside to have the inside line through to defend that little look. Leaves a bit of space up the inside, but all of a sudden, that little look could compromise Henry Morse's run out of the corner. One final lap to go here in Silverstone, and one more circulation of this Silverstone circuit for Tim Rutten to hang on, but look at how close Henry is now in towards Copse.
Henry looks to the inside line, race 1 winner going for the race lead in race 2, and he's gone down the inside, got a decent run through the corner. They remain side by side on the exit. Kyle Ridley gets a run, he's pushing Henry Morse on the right hand side. He says, look, I believe in you, you can do this, you can get in front, sunshine. Is he going to be able to make it work though? It's like a bad joke waiting to happen. A Dutchman, an American, an Australian walk into a bar and then go to Maggotts and Beckett's. There's Tim Rutten somehow holding on around the outside. That's fantastic driving by Tim Rutten. Amazing stuff to hold on to the lead of this race. I do apologise if my microphone has gone hypersonic. I've turned it up for this evening. But wow, Tim Rutten doing everything right in that scenario there. And Kyle Ridley and Henry Morse now fighting. This is perfect for him. This is exactly what he wants.
This is, but has he gone a bit too deep? Henry Morse has gone far too deep when he does contact. Tim Rutten, he hangs on. Henry Morse gets a good drive out of the corner, but Tim Rutten, he just needs to stay ahead hold the inside line, park it on the apex, and he'll win the race today. Oh my word, I can't even speak. This is all kicking off because all of a sudden, look who's arrived on the scene. It's Stephen King.
King on the scene as well, looking down the inside once again is Henry Morse. Tim Rutten has to cover the inside line, but Henry's already got his nose down the inside there. Is he going to be able to do it? He's going to have the inside line for Luffield. Is he going to be able to get the run off the corner though? He's still going to be side by side as they go around the final corner. Now he's just not going to want this car to run wide. Tim Rutten holding on for dear life ahead of Henry Morse. It's going to be a run to the line. Henry's got the wider line, so he might have a bit more pace in the car, but they're going to go side by side across the line in the British Boring Car Championship round 4. But it's going to be... Who's it going to be? Is it going to be Tim Rutten? Tim Rutten gets the job done, takes the race victory in round 4 of the British Boring Car Championship. Henry Morse finishes in second, and Kyle Ridley finishes third, just ahead of Stephen King. Stephen Burns next up. Then Jack Johns was side by side with Sam Van Olst at the line as well. They almost had a dead heat, 0.02 of a second there. Flipping heck. Oh my God, Jake Cranstone somehow gets points in that one as well, even after the spin. But Tim Rutten is a race winner in the British Boring Car Championship. Oh my life. That's why we love this series. Flipping heck.
Bleeding heck. What a race that was. I completely lost the ability to speak because all of a sudden, just quick as a flash, Stephen King was on the scene and there was a question mark if he could go on and win the thing. It was so close, but not quite enough for Henry Morse to take his second victory of the evening. But thankfully, we didn't have another shutout, Chaz. We had Tim Rutten there to save the day.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. This is the battle into the final few corners then. Henry Morse down the inside. Great respect between those two. They left each other plenty of room. And then Henry's going to have Tim just poke his nose back down the inside again. Look, he's running a little bit wide, but Henry gives him just the room that he needs. And Tim gets a decent enough run off the corner. But watch how close this is going to be across the line as the two of them make their run through. Henry does get a good run because he's got the wider line, runs the car out as straight as possible to hold that speed. But Tim Rutten is a race winner in the British Boring Car Championship, and a very well-deserving one at that. Like I said before, he had a very, very rough pre-season test, but this is why the reverse grids work, because some of the drivers do hold on, and they do get these race victories, and they make it work throughout the entire evening. Awesome, epic, love it.
That was a brilliant race, and I'll tell you what, it's early doors, but I think rounds 3 and 4 could be ones to look back on very fondly in this third season of the British Boring Car Championship by Abruzzi Racewear, because what an evening's worth of racing we were treated to. The first race was sublime, and then that second one, it just defies description.
It really does, and it certainly threw up a lot of changes in the championship as well. Look at that, though, between 6th and 7th, Jack Johns and Sam Van Olst actually finishing 0.03 apart. Let's have a look at how that all happened, because I want to get a view on this between these pair, actually, before we go back to it. So these are the leaders coming around the final corners. Jack Johns and Sam Van Olst glued to each other, completely together. Sam trying to squeeze him to the apex. I'm amazed Jack's got any incident points left. Look at that, kissing wing mirrors as they come through. And I think if we go to a wider camera, we might get a better view of this as they now head round the final corner. There is the start-finish line, and oh my goodness me, it's actually this line there. There it is, look at that, completely together. Jack Johns just taking Sam Van Olst at the line with that inside line. But Tim Rutten, well, he'll be over the moon with that. I'm sure he won't be able to speak, to be honest with you, with how happy he'll be after taking his first race victory in the British Boring Car Championship. What we're going to do, though, is actually get him in for a chat, because Tim Rutten, sunshine, you must be over the moon, mate. Congratulations, you're a British Boring Car Championship race winner.
God, that race was way too long.
I'm not surprised, mate. It's sometimes the worst thing in the world when you lead from the very front throughout the whole thing, isn't it? It's worse than sort of coming through from like 4th or 5th, isn't it?
Yeah, especially when you don't have the pace to be competing with the front runners usually. You're just defending for every inch of the track you can get, and just try to hold on to as much points as possible. Getting the win right here, that was just unbelievable. I was not expecting it.
Well, you certainly absolutely nailed it, Tim. What did you make of the circuit and the car tonight? I mean, it's a lovely circuit. Me and Ed absolutely adore this place, but it's not a track that a lot of people have experience of, is it?
No, for me as well, this layout in particular, I've never driven it before, and me not really being that experienced with this car, I was struggling at the start of the night. But after race 1, I got more confident in the car and with the track, so I was happy to take that into the race 2.
Well, you certainly made it work, mate, and the next circuit we're heading to is Brands Hatch, the Grand Prix circuit, in a week's time. Are you looking forward to that one just as much as this now?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, Brands Hatch is it's really tight. I think it will be easier to defend my position.
Well, we look forward to seeing how you get on, Tim. You must be over the moon. Is there anyone you'd like to give a thanks to before you go?
Yeah, really, for making my life a little bit easier on the last 2 laps.
Well, thank you very much, Tim. Great to speak to you as ever, buddy, and hopefully we'll speak to you again at Brands Hatch. Have a good one.
Yeah, cheers, man.
Well, there you go. Tim Rutten, race winner for the first time in the British Touring Car Championship. And we're going to move very quickly on to another driver that actually had quite a decent race in that one. Another podium, and certainly fought his way through all the chaos for Team Jane Fonda. Kyle, Mr. Ridley, joins us in the box. Kyle, more championship points for you this evening and for the team. Quite a solid night, all in all, really.
That's it, yeah. Quite a solid night. Me and Stephen scored points both races, and that's all you can really ask for.
What did you make of the layout? Because as I've just said to Tim, and as we've sort of discussed all night, it's not really a track that everybody knows like the back of their hand, this place.
No, it's actually quite interesting. I've had no experience of this track other than like an old Need for Speed game. So
Right.
looking up and I was like, oh, we don't turn here. Oh, we turn here. It was an interesting experience, but no, it's quite a cool track and it suited the car pretty well.
And going back as a sort of blast from the past, this championship really erupted a bit tonight. There was a lot of contact and touring cars argy-bargy. What was it like from where you were? Was it still very much fun, or was it a bit of an angering situation?
It was fun. I mean, I've raced some of these guys for, since 2020, 2019, for example. So I know what they're capable of. I know what they're going to do. So the first lap, I just let the reverse pole guys, I let them go. And sure enough, they had a civil war, and I was able to poke my way through and get a P3.
Well, it worked out for you either way, Kyle, and obviously the team's championship looking good for you and Stephen at the moment. Are you going to have your eyes on that now going forward, now you've got this early momentum?
Well, we knew that we could be strong because we're both fairly decent drivers, but the other team with John Bailiff and Samuel Knowles did not score at all tonight, I believe, or not very well. So with that in mind, I think, team's championship is our goal.
Well, we look forward to seeing how it all goes and obviously the battle that comes with it. Is there anybody you'd like to give a quick shout out to while we've got you on the broadcast?
I just want to thank yourself for the commentary. All the drivers tonight. It was pretty good racing and I really enjoyed it, and I want to give a shout out to my mum.
Lovely stuff. Well, Mummy Ridley, hope you enjoyed the show. And Kyle, glad you enjoyed it as well, mate. We'll see you at Brands Hatch in a week's time.
Thank you.
Wonderful stuff. Kyle Ridley there, all the way from Australia, racing in this championship as well. It's very early in the morning where he is. And he was drafted in, let's not forget, Ed, last minute to replace Anders Theis Ankersen for this championship. Literally the day of rounds 1 and 2, he was brought in. He's been an absolute superstar so far.
It has been real revelation and one to really keep our eyes on. I think a podium to himself, wasn't it, at Donington Park? I think he finished second, actually, wasn't it, to Jake Cranston in the second race. So I think it's only a matter of time before we speak to Kyle Ridley as a race winner.
And hopefully not too long before we speak to this bloke as a race winner again. He came very close in that one. Dave Waldock, welcome back to the championship, Dave. It's lovely to have you back, mate. It's not changed, has it?
No, well, I would say the pace has changed.
Oh, it's crazy.
But yeah. No, thank you for kind of running it, and lovely bunch of guys. It's lovely that we're all in the same room and kind of just having a laugh.
And that's what sort of makes me really happy about it all, because I know that in cars like this, when they're very sensitive to contact, it can kick off a bit, and it does get very argy-bargy, but everyone's in there sort of soaking up the vibe of it, aren't they? And it really helps when everyone's in the same room and able to communicate.
Absolutely, it's a lovely atmosphere. That's what I really love. So, thank you for running it, because I think it's an enjoyable Wednesday. So, yeah.
Well, Hump Day needs some positivity about it. How are you feeling after the first 2 race meetings in terms of your championship effort, though? Because obviously it's just as strict as ever with championship points and incident points, so it's not easy from a driver's perspective, is it?
No, I mean, I've not been close to X's. This one was a little bit closer because it was my mistake. I had Jake next to me and I took a different line but carried the same speed and I just couldn't stop, which was a shame. But I'm glad I finished 8th. In the second one, considering.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's one of those races where it can very easily be a great success or one little moment and a tiny misjudgment from either you or another driver, and it just goes completely to pot, doesn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I never felt like I was the quickest on a hot lap, but I'm quite consistent. Hence, in the first season, I think I did quite well consistently. But these guys are just so consistent and fast. So it's really hard to get any points, but I'm enjoying it. So.
Well, that's the main thing, Dave. That's what we love to hear. And hopefully we'll be speaking to you again at Brands Hatch in a few weeks' time, or in a week's time, I should say. Is there anyone you'd like to give a thanks to while I've got you?
I always say hello to the SMD boys. I don't know if they're watching it, but like 4D, you're probably watching it, but yeah.
Fair play. Well, great to see you as always, Dave. Thank you very much for coming back to the championship, and we'll see you again at Brands.
Okay, thank you very much, guys.
Cheers. Dave Waldock's such a lovely guy, Ed. Such a fierce competitor as well, though. He's very, very fast, and he was runner-up in the first series of this championship to Dennis Melchett after a really dramatic championship hunt. It's just great to see drivers like that coming back and still enjoying it. And that's the thing. The thing that he highlighted there that makes me so... It's just really heartwarming to hear that whenever I see contact, and I'm sure from a sort of league organiser's perspective you'll feel the same, that when you see guys racing like this and you do see contact that's maybe a bit unnecessary or just a little bit of a shoddy mistake, everyone is human, so they can make mistakes, but you worry about what the fallout will be, what people will be thinking, if they'll be angry or upset or if there'll be negative emotion. But the fact that Dave comes in here and he still says, look, it's a great atmosphere, such a lovely place to be, and even with the contact we were having, there was a lot of drivers in that chat that could have made life hell in there because of that contact, but they haven't, and that's lovely to hear, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Obviously you always think, oh god, is there going to be an absolute storm in the Discord channel after something you see on track? But to know that we've got just a good bunch of people here that race hard and properly aggressive with one another, but aren't that way as people and how they talk to each other off track, it is just really wonderful. It's like proper club racing, really, isn't it? Just the tight-knit atmosphere of it.
Yeah, for sure. It's been absolutely lovely once again. And 2 different race winners on the night this time, which has made a change from Donington Park, where we had rounds 1 and 2. But that is unfortunately all we have time for here tonight on Chaz Draycott Media for the British Boring Car Championship by Abruzzi Racewear. Thanks as always to the drivers, the wonderful viewers, and of course the wonderful Ed May for co-commentating, and our fantastic sponsors, Abruzzi Racewear, Sim Stickers and Sim Racing Magazine. That's all from us here, though. Thank you very much for watching, everybody, and we'll see you at Brands Hatch in a week's time. Have a good night.
4 French drivers at the French Grand Prix trying to win this on the final lap. The 3 wide again, Guillaume down the inside. Guillaume moves across, they're both in front of Milan and Pouget.
But before you know it, we find ourselves here in the very final race of the competition.
And then they see truck racing and they think, this is crazy, these are 5-ton machines, 1,200 horsepower brake.
Oh, look at that switchback. Oh, he's been loved and a terrific show out.
Ben Gregory now, I love this. 10.5 minutes gone. Senna Anderson tries to go for the race lead.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head to head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
finish. I think Dennis Melchett has done enough to win the last round of the championship and to win the title all in one fell swoop.
It's a pretty boring car championship. Things are never chilled here. Honestly, the cars may be a bit dull, but wow, the racing certainly isn't.
Fastest lap of the race now, Ben Lambert.
Look at Andy Fox coming through the middle. He makes a little bit of contact. Dave Waldock is around and he's off on the grass.
Rayfield tries to go right round the outside of Druids. You do not do that and get away with it very often.
Takes the win in round 12. There's contact again. Fraser Smith and Dennis Melchett are off the circuit.